everyone. I'm Ian.
And this is Sam.
And you're listening to Do I Like This, the podcast.
Yay!
We're finally recording from this place where we're looking at each other.
Yes.
It's the little things. So this week is a Sam's pick that's fitting into our June 2021 Wildlife Awareness Month theme.
Yeah, Ian decided all the movies that he wanted to watch this month were monstery animal movies. So
Yeah, I want some big creatures.
So he came up with a theme. So if you listen to our podcast, you know that I have a list of movies that Ian has not seen that I don't understand how he hasn't seen. So this movie's off the list, but it's different from pretty much all the other movies because all the other movies for the most part are good, like either really good or pretty good or some sort of cult classic. This movie is a cult classic, but the reason it's on the list, aside from the fact that everyone just should see it, so Ian is a huge fan of sharks.
Yes.
Ian loves Jaws.
Very much so.
Favorite movie?
No, but it's definitely probably my top 10.
Yeah. Really, obsessed with sharks. Watches everything with sharks, whatever. I found out just a couple months ago that Ian's never seen Jaws the Revenge.
Also known as Jaws 4, for those of us out there who need a little hint as to where in the sequence this fell.
Yeah, so we've been sort of joking about, it's going to be one that we have to do at some point because it's a classic and because it's in the Jaws universe.
You keep throwing this word classic around.
Well, it's old and most people have seen it. It fits into an iconic franchise.
All right, I'll give it more along the lines of it is part of the franchise of a classic.
Yeah. All the franchises have a one or two outliers that are just real bad.
This was definitely something.
Oh my God. So we just finished watching it five minutes ago.
Yeah.
So
I'm processing as we do this.
Yeah, his face is shell shocked. So this is going to be a little bit of a different format. We're kind of do this as we do the monthly ones, the mainstream monthly ones. I'm going to read the Wikipedia because we know that's always super accurate. And then we're just going to have a little chat and I'll give Ian some trivia. So before we get started, the fun thing about this movie is that I've seen this movie so many times. I haven't seen it in about 15-ish years.
I don't understand.
I think they used to just play it all the time on USA or something. Remember back in the day they played old, it wasn't that old at that point, but shitty movies.
Yeah, I guess.
Often. And I think it just
used the only way it would make sense to me that you've seen this many times.
Well, we didn't have we didn't have fancy cable or anything. So it had to be late night cable TV of some kind. And I know I've seen it many times on TV. Specifically,
this isn't absolutely a made-for-TV style movie.
It definitely is an SYFY type situation.
No, I think you were right with USA Network. Yeah, you would see this on TBS on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so I have seen this movie. So I'm a huge fan of Jaws and Jaws 2. Jaws 3D doesn't exist.
The aquarium,
as far as I'm concerned.
You mean the glory that is Jaws 3D?
Horrific.
It's delightful.
Okay. And that's why...
And that's the difference between us.
So for some reason, I've seen this movie way more times than any of the other ones put together. And I haven't seen it in a very long time, so I was actually kind of excited to watch it. And it all came flooding back. And it is more ridiculous than I remember it being.
When we get to it, you had one moment where it happened and you got so excited because you had forgotten about it. And you're like, oh, I forgot about this. And I was like... How did you ever forget about this? It was iconic in that way in this movie. In the bad kind of iconic.
Yeah.
So let's get into the Wikipedia because I need to talk about some things.
So we're just going to go on the assumption that everybody knows the characters of the franchise. This movie pretends that part 3 didn't happen. Like most of us. So it's going off of the original characters from the first 2 movies. If you don't know, go Google real quick.
No. If you don't know, go watch Jaws 1 and 2.
Well, yeah, that too.
At least one.
Right. Because they're all in it.
And it's the right time of year to watch a Jaws movie because we're coming into beach season. People are going back out.
Although this is a Christmas movie.
Dude, don't even... Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Another Christmas movie. All right, here's the Wikipedia plot synopsis. It's a little long, so bear with us. On Amity Island, Martin Brody, famous for his role as the police chief and his heroism, has died from a heart attack. That's not in the movie at all. It's a throwaway line, but whatever. Martin's widow, Ellen, still lives in Amity close to her youngest son, Sean, and his fiancée, Tiffany. Sean works as a police deputy when he's dispatched to clear a log from a buoy a few days before Christmas. A great white shark appears and tears his arm off. He screams for help, but the singing on land drowns out his cries. They're singing because it's Christmas. They're singing Christmas carols, just so that no one...
the first Noel.
Just so that no one is confused and think that on Amity Island in the New England area, people just sing loudly at night for no reason. The shark sinks his boat and drags him under the water. Martin's older son, Michael, his wife, Carla... Hold on. Why are they referring to Martin's son instead of Ellen's son? Martin's not even in the movie.
Fucking man.
Toxic masculinity.
Damn right.
Martin's older son, Michael, his wife, Carla, and their 5-year-old daughter, Thea, come to Amity for the funeral. Michael is working in the Bahamas as a marine biologist, and on his arrival, Ellen demands that he stop his work. Having just received his first grant, Michael is reluctant. Thea convinces Ellen to return to the Bahamas with them. The pilot on their small plane, Hoagie, not a sandwich, actually Michael Caine, takes an interest... That was my line, not Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's better than that. It was actually made me kind of chuckle.
Takes an interest in Ellen when he flies them back. Wanting to take her mind off her recent losses and finding herself attracted, she begins spending time with him. Michael introduces his mother to his colleague Jake and his wife, and they spend Christmas and New Year's together. A few days later, Michael, Jake, and their crew encounter the shark, which followed the family from Amity. Jake is eager to research it because great white sharks have never been seen in the Bahamas due to the warm water. Michael asks him not to mention the shark to his family. During the day, Ellen can keep her mind off the shark, but at night she has nightmares of being attacked by it. She is also able to feel when the shark is about to attack one of her loved ones, which we will talk about. Jake decides to attach a device to the shark that can track it through its heartbeat. Using chum to attract it, Jake stabs the device's tracking pole into the shark's side. The next day, the shark chases Michael through a sunken ship. Oh my God. And he narrowly escapes. Ian's just like nodding and staring off into the distance. I can't even
open the floodgates. Otherwise, I'm just going to derail the whole summary.
Right. Thea goes on an inflatable banana boat with her friend Margaret and her mother. While Carla presents her new art sculpture, the shark attacks the back of the boat, killing a passenger. After Thea is safe, Ellen boards Jake's boat to track down the shark, intending to kill it and save her family. After hearing about what happened, Michael confesses that he knew about the shark, infuriating Carla. Michael and Jake are flown by Hoagie to search for Ellen, and...
I'm sorry, you need to stop, because I just see being flown by a giant sandwich.
Oh God, I could go for a sandwich right now.
Thank you, Wikipedia. That was well done.
Yeah. And find the shark in pursuit of their boat. During the search, Hoagie explains to Michael about Ellen's belief that the shark that killed Sean is hunting her family. When they find her, Hoagie lands the plane on the water, ordering Michael and Jake to swim to the boat as the shark drags the plane and Hoagie underwater. Hoagie escapes from the shark, and Jake and Michael hastily put together a device that emits electrical impulses. As Jake moves to the front of the boat, the shark lunges, giving it the chance to pull Jake under and maul him. Jake manages to get the device into the shark's mouth before he's taken underwater. Michael begins blasting the shark with the impulses, which drive it mad. It repeatedly jumps out of the water, roaring in pain. Michael continues blasting the shark with the impulses, causing it to leap out of the water again. Ellen steers the sailboat back toward the shark while thinking back to the shark attack on Thea, Sean's death, and Mark defeating the first shark, despite not having witnessed the latter two. That's in parentheses, which was our exact problem, among many. The broken bowsprit impales the shark. In the original version of the film that was screened in the US, the shark simply bleeds out and dies after being impaled, which is what I saw when I was a kid. In the revised edition ending to the international theater and DVD versions, the impaling somehow causes the shark to explode, which I had never seen before, but was this version. So we'll talk about that too. In this explosion, the shark's corpse sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Michael hears Jake calling for help, seriously injured but alive. In parentheses here, it says Jake dies in the original cut, and I do have something to say about that as well. The four safely make it back to land. Hoagie then flies Ellen back to Amity Island. The end. Ian's face. Right now. I mean, that was accurate, right?
I have nothing to take issue with in the Wikipedia, really.
Yeah.
It's the movie I have some things I want to talk about. Where do I even begin? I mean, first of all, my first reaction to this movie, maybe 15 minutes removed from it, is, well, that happened. Sam, what do you remember from this film while I put some thoughts together?
I remember watching it as a kid because I was a kid. I couldn't have been more than like 15 the last time I saw it. And I remember like it wasn't a good movie, but I remember it being like fun to watch. Watching it now as an older person and understanding it a bit better and having a more discerning eye. Aside from the actors and the names, this is not a Jaws movie.
I think I said to you in the New Year's scene, are we going to get a shark movie at all?
Yeah.
We eventually do. I want to start off on a positive note. Michael Caine is delightful in this movie.
Oh, yes. Michael Caine as Hoagie. First of all, this was a paycheck. He has never watched this movie. I read a lot of trivia.
Ooh.
He's never actually watched this movie. He says, I heard it was terrible, but the house that it built is beautiful. Because he had a rash of movies in the late 80s, early 90s that he just did for a paycheck.
Between him,
Nicolas
George
Cage,
Kennedy, a lot of people, like, hey, make that money. No fault there. Right. I would take the paycheck to be in that movie.
His character is by far the best, not just acting, but just the best because he's comedic relief, obviously. He's constantly telling these wacky stories. He reminds me of my uncle, where he'll just be like, oh, this one time when I was in Malaysia,
yes,
I was eating monkey brains, and then he'll just go on this, he'll just start talking about
the time I flew 100 nuns to Nairobi, which is an actual line to end the movie.
So a funny thing that happens in this movie that I like is that anytime you see a scene with him, for the most part, he's either finishing a story or beginning a story. And so you're getting like, this is who he is as a character. And it's very funny.
I told you as it was happening, he reminds me in this film of his exact character from my favorite movie of all time, Noise is Off, in which he is the delightful, losing his mind as everything's happening director. He's just such a good actor. His delivery, his pacing, the way he talks, I want him to narrate my internal dialogue daily. It's just if you remove him from this movie, I can't watch this movie.
Yeah, he kind of is the glue. So his character is like living in the Bahamas because the very beginning of the movie, like the Wikipedia said, takes place in Amity, the fictional New England town. Mm-hmm. And then most of the movie is in the Bahamas. And so he's the guy who flies people around. And so there's a whole cut out plot line that was filmed where he's a drug smuggler. And they allude to it briefly in a couple scenes. But I really wish they left that in because it would have been so funny.
I don't, because this movie's too long as it is.
Oh, that's true. Yes. I just wanted to see more of him.
He was in the movie plenty, which is good. There's stuff I would have cut scenes from this movie. God.
So I want to ask you about 90s action star Mario Van Peebles, who plays Jake in this movie.
I genuinely didn't realize it was him.
He had
in that wig for a minute and that accent.
He had the worst wig. And then it's like this little like dreadlock wig. It's like, I can't describe it, but it seemed like he was making fun of it a lot too.
It did.
And he had such a fake accent. I don't know what accent he was going for. Obviously, like Bahamian of some kind, but it was bad. One of the things I read is that he wrote his entire character. Like he wrote the dialogue and everything for his character because the movie was made on the fly. Like,
okay, thank you.
From conception to post-production, 9 months.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a movie having a character written by the actor on the fly?
I mean, sure, but this is like sort of a big budget movie.
Yeah, and so a movie that comes from a franchise like this just seems insane that they didn't even have a script.
Well, so they had a script. It just was like messy. So like I said, I read a bunch of trivia. And this leads to my favorite piece of trivia that you're going to lose your mind about.
God.
That maybe you love. I don't know. It's kind of up your alley. So Ellen, the grandmother, Sheriff Brody's wife. Hold on, I'm laughing. I can't even say it. So first of all, I need to say she's beautiful for like an older lady. At this time, I don't know how far apart the movies were, but
I don't know. I don't think I could really see her without those shoulder pads. It really kind of.
I was just gonna say that the '80s clothes in this movie, Ellen was a shoulder pad monster.
She had shoulder pads under shoulder pads. We found out towards the end.
It was ridiculous. She had like a plain white T-shirt with shoulder pads in it.
I mean, go big or go home.
Right.
It was the '80s.
So Ellen gets these feelings when the shark is attacking people.
Jesus
At one point,
Christ.
She's playing with her granddaughter in the sand, and she's backing up, digging a trench to a castle, and accidentally steps into the water because at this point she's very traumatized by the water, which I would be too. It's fine.
Yeah, it's been like 3 days since her son was killed by a shark.
Murdered by a shark. Is that what you were about to say?
I almost said murdered by a shark.
So she accidentally like backs into the water and she stops and she like freezes and then she turns around really fast and stares out into the water.
The surprise hamster.
And you hear like this ominous music and she's
Excuse me.
And she's staring off like something's coming, like that kind of look.
Oh my God.
I rewound it because we had to watch it again because it was just so funny. And so this happens multiple times. She gets like, she's not even there when the shark attacks Michael in the underground submarine, which we'll get to. And she's at some sort of like festival with Hoagie and she's like, so she like knows that the shark is coming. And so she the whole time is like, the shark is coming for us. So there was a subplot that was cut where it was a voodoo curse on the Brody family. And the shark was under the spell of a voodoo person. Because that's how it works.
Question. Sorry. Was it a voodoo curse on the family that the shark was hunting them?
Yes.
Or I thought you were saying it was a voodoo curse, which is why she suddenly had these magical connections.
No, it's a voodoo curse on the family to make the shark hunt them.
So I
don't know the origin of the curse, but I know that was a plot line.
So I mean, credit to whoever thought to cut that because that's just a disaster. Unfortunately, the whole film falls apart when you cut the underlying causation for why the shark is able to hunt you across the Atlantic Ocean.
Down into waters where it can't survive.
Yeah, so I was going to say for a minute from a science perspective, this is a disaster. And that's all I'll say for that.
Yeah.
Real need to go beyond that. What I really need to know is Ellen's been in this movie and the other movies. When did her mystical powers arise and where did they come from?
Listen, the curse didn't start until this movie, so they're brand new. So she's just getting used to them.
You know what? Okay. Yeah. She's like the preteen of these powers. They're just arising. She's adjusting. She feels a little awkward when she steps in the water. Right. Okay.
So there was.
God damn it! This
apparently there was a scene with a little girl.
Thea.
Who was under the voodoo spell and started to like walk out into the water toward the shark.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but I would have been okay with that kind of silliness.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe it's right up your alley. It sounds like an asylum movie, which we're fine with.
Yeah, no, all right. You need to lean heavy into like
Can you Google right now if voodoo shark is a thing?
Trust me, it is. I don't even have to Google that. I've never even seen it, but I know it is.
Yeah.
All right. What I was going to say is credit for them cutting that plot line, trying to be a serious movie. If you're trying to be a serious movie, you can't have that plot line. But if you're going to end up with this anyways, and you don't, go for it. Go all in.
Right.
All in.
I think at some point they realized that they were working with trash. And
I think
so
it was when Mario Van Peebles put on the wig for the first time.
Yeah.
So before we talk about, the elephant in the room this entire movie, I just want to say, what the fuck was up with that statue she was making?
Oh, so Michael's wife was an artist, and she made a really ugly statue that was like commemorating the Bahamas or something. And I would have been offended if it was commemorating me. But I know at one point the way that it was designed, they were like shooting through. It was supposed to kind of resemble a shark mouth.
Thank you. You saw that moment with Ellen too.
It was very obvious, but then it just otherwise it was just really dumb.
The problem was it really didn't look like a shark mouth at all.
No, at all. And then they painted it red, so it just was like, oh, come on.
It was so bad. I know it's a random little detail, but it was so bad, and it was constantly referred to in the movie, and they constantly referred to in the movie, and they kept going back to it. I was like, this is the worst statue I've ever seen. Well, what is going on?
It wasn't necessary. It was only necessary to set up.
I would cut that whole.
You could have had the little kid get onto the banana boat without that whole thing happening.
They could have just been at a ceremony or at a thing or at the beach. Yeah. So that is a whole plot line I would have cut out to save time. One
of the things about Jaws movies is the body count and the deaths. They're fun, right? Yeah. There's a bunch of them. Even if there's not a ton, there's enough of them to satiate us, and they're usually fun.
Or there's suspense and there's tension.
Right, and you don't see a ton of the shark, which is the whole point.
Because it was hard to do that back then.
Well, and also it's created a whole like.
What you don't see is more terrifying. It fits in with the ocean because there's so much unseen.
You don't see it until the end, really. You just see parts of it. I know as the franchise went on, it did that less and less. However, this movie, right from the get-go, you see the full-on shark, and it is not pretty.
So before we get to the shark, the only death I thought was even somewhat okay was the banana boat girl getting killed.
Yes.
So that was kind of good when they drove away from it because it was far away from the shark.
When it was one of two, right? Sean at the beginning, and then the banana boat lady.
Banana boat lady.
And then Jake died, but he didn't die.
Jake was dead. Jake was dead.
Well, he was in the original cut, and they didn't have enough money to go back and refilm it.
Before we talk about the shark, since we're on this, all right, at the very end, Jake is on the bow, out on the little like pier at the front of the boat, shoving a strobe light into it because science says we're going to use 2 strobe lights, and it's going to okay. And he's like, where's the shark? Obviously, it's going to come and bite him. It engulfs him, bites him in half practically. He's being chewed and dragged under by the shark.
He's bleeding everywhere.
Dunzo.
He's decimated.
He's being eaten worse than the girl on the banana boat who was killed.
Yeah.
There's no way. And I look at Sam like, I bet you this movie is going to bring him back as a joke because he was so dead.
No, you said magic, not death or something like that. You made some kind of comment, and I
no way you
turned away from you to hide my face because I was like, oh God, he was
Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea level dead.
Yes.
And of course he comes back totally fine.
Well, he was bleeding a bit. He
was lightly munched.
Yeah. He was just like a little chomped. Like a little nibble. A little nibble. So what had happened was they released the movie with him dying.
Yeah.
And it went over very poorly with audiences from what I was reading. So they just went back in and recut the whole thing, and they had that little extra shot of him being alive.
Is that why they shot it in the film tank at the end because they had to get him all back for reshoots?
So bad. Yeah. So they just shot that little piece and tacked it on and didn't bother cutting out the shark munching him as it was diving deeper into the water. Like, you could have cut a lot of that out and
just
made it not seem
have it grab him, and then don't show it munching him in the water. Yeah.
Right.
Like you just said.
So that, and then I want to say, so at the end, one of my favorite parts of this movie as a kid that I remember is at the end, the shark jumps up, and I'm making this movement for Ian. Shark jumps up and it gets impaled on that mast. It's not the mast. It's a bowsprit brit or something. I don't know what it's called. I'm not a boat person. It's the
front spike.
the pointy
front
stick
spike.
that sticks out of the front of a yachty sailboat. It's not a yacht, sailboat. See, not a boat person. So it jumps and it gets impaled, right? In this version, it exploded.
That was absolutely
was hilarious and ridiculous. In the version that I grew up watching, which was apparently the original version, which I don't know why they changed, it comes out of the water like fucking Godzilla, like 50 feet tall, gets impaled, it breaks off the bow thing, and then it just like sinks into the water, and you just watch it. It's
giant style.
It's sinking, and the blood is billowing, and you have it like impaled, and it's just hysterical looking. It's one of the funniest scenes.
I absolutely loved that.
In my head, I remember being like, as a kid, being like, this is so hysterical and ridiculous, and I love it. Right?
No.
It ruined the end of the movie for me. It ruined the whole movie for me because I was waiting for that moment.
It made no sense that the shark exploded.
Why did it explode?
Okay, can we talk about, actually, before we get to the shark, because you just made me think about it, the flashbacks? Because they're like, as it's jumping and this is happening, Ellen's staring at the shark, and throughout the movie, she's had these brown, I'm going to call them brown and white flashbacks, because they're like this...
They're sepia-toned.
Sepia-toned flashbacks. And in this moment, it's Martin Brody on the boat aiming to shoot the tank in the first Jaws.
Saying, smile, you son of a bitch.
They literally use the line, and he explodes as the boat hit it. It's like he shot it.
His magical spirit, maybe. I don't know, the voodoo powers.
Martin saved the day. Sure.
Just exploded the shark. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was, listen, the impalement was ridiculous. Okay, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme, it made sense.
No, right? Sure.
The explosion.
No sense.
None at all.
Please
nothing
send
about
us
that made
your
sense.
best ideas on why that shark exploded.
Yeah, please.
Do I like this podcast at gmail.com. All right, the shark. We got to talk.
The shark. First of all, this shark.
Straight up stolen from Universal Studios, like lot.
Oh, the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also, well, it like comes out of the water, like 30 feet out of the water, and it's still only like halfway out of the water. So this shark is... It's massive,
and it always comes up like it's flexing.
Yeah,
like
well, because it's
core.
I'm sure it's just on hydraulics, like like just lifting out of the water.
Like if you imagine a cannon just raising out of the water and then moving forward, that is how it kind of moves.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
This was one of the worst big studio film creature effects I've ever seen.
It looked like paper mache.
It really did.
It looked messy.
But it looked great. And there's the one underwater scene.
God.
So
talk about the first time Jake sees it where it slides
up.
Right.
Okay. So the first time Jake sees it, Jake's underwater driving the submersible. Like, we get a cut, and all of a sudden we cut back, and it's side by side, like, just kind of saying, hey. And Jake's like, whoa, look. The shark's like, I'm here.
It's just looking like with its little eye, big eye, just kind of looking at him, side-eyeing him like, hey. Oh, you ain't a Brody, not interested.
I see you.
Yeah. It was really funny.
Oh, my God. Hysterical shot.
Yeah.
So the first time Michael sees it, it rams him in the same submersible. He escapes while it's mangling it up. He swims, a little kick feet really fast.
He swims to a very conveniently sunken ship.
Yeah.
Nearby.
And so we have like... what was probably supposed to be suspense and tension, this like they're both going through the ship. It's
a chase scene in an underwater ship or something. And the shark is chasing him down a hallway.
Right. So we see Michael like going through like these, decrepit shipwreck hallway, and then all of a sudden, and Sam goes, "Oh my God, we see the shark sneaking through this giant shark," and Sam's dying. I love it. I loved this. This was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
It was very daintily making its way through this sunken ship.
Size changes too throughout the movie. God. I
hilariously
wish this was more of what the movie was, because this chase scene was hilarious.
If they leaned more into the absurdity, I think this movie would have been more of a cult status, as opposed to it being, it's like a Troll 2 type situation where, well, no, it's not really Troll 2, but it's one of those situations where it's very well known for being horrible.
It needed to go Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness. Like that's where it needed to go Army of Darkness. Like that level of, okay, the franchise started out trying to be a little bit more serious in horror. We've gotten a few in. let's go. Let's be all right. What else can we? Let's be funny.
Right.
Like,
listen,
let's go. We've done the serious shark movies.
I personally feel like if they left in the silly voodoo thing, because whatever, they left in the whole thing where Ellen the whole time is like, the shark is coming for us. Like, if you would have leaned into that, it's dumb and it's ridiculous. But I guarantee you, to this day, there would be people doing like watch parties and conventions and what people would be all into that stupid, ridiculous shit.
But my concern is, after seeing how they portrayed Mario Van Peebles as a local Caribbean, I'm horrified at how racist their voodoo would have been.
Oh, I mean, listen.
I don't trust this film to have done that in a way that wasn't really badly aged.
This is not excusing it, but it was the 80s, and we know that it was notoriously tone deaf, for lack of a better word.
It was probably the right decision on all fronts.
Oh, listen, cutting it was a good idea. I'm just saying, what could have been will haunt my dreams, because I never knew that until I had read the trivia, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Okay, so I'm going to ask Sam this, but listeners, I also want you to send us your answer to this question. Who voodoo curses the Brodies and why?
Ooh. I'm going to say Quint's family.
Interesting. I'm going to say the mayor of Amnesty.
Amity?
The mayor of Amity, because he's still fucking pissed to shut down the beach.
Oh, that's it. That's even better.
He loses re-election because of it, and he blames it all on Brody. So he gets in a really dark place, gets in some really bad things, some really bad friends.
He finds the only voodoo practitioner in New England.
And that's how we get Jaws 4. That's what I'm going with.
I like that. So the mayor was actually supposed to be in this movie, but he wound up passing away right before they filmed it.
Oh.
So he wasn't in it. And
his body saved him from this movie.
Martin Brody, whose name off the top of my head I can't remember, which is a travesty, but I can't. Schneider? Roy Schneider. He
I almost said Rob Schneider. I'm like, nope.
Roy Schneider. He was asked to be in this movie, and he was like, fuck no, there's nothing you could do to make me be in this movie. Like, Satan couldn't compel me.
I already have the money. I don't need it.
He was not interested in anything after Jaws 2. I think he just was like,
he didn't even want to be in Jaws 2.
Right. I remember reading about that.
But he signed a contract, so he phoned that in.
Well, the funny thing in this movie is toward the beginning when Sean, before he gets killed, he's a deputy. He goes into the police office or whatever. Like, you got anything for me? Okay, I'm going to go home before he gets called out. And there's a massive, humongous picture of Roy Schneider on the wall. So good. Like, immortalized on the wall.
Like, hand or chin in the hand, like posing for the camera in his police uniform.
Oh, God. So funny. Because Ian was like, whoa, because it was right in your face.
It knocks you off your chair.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else, because there was so much happening and it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
And I laughed a lot, and I'm sure I was
jealous that the little girl had that amazing rope swing on the back of her house, like over the ocean.
Oh, the dock? Yeah,
what a cool fucking house.
I am terrified of open water. I have been since I was a kid. I'm fine with like lakes and ponds and streams or whatever. I get like a little bit nervous when I can't touch the bottom, but it's really okay. But like the ocean, I can't go in past my knees. I get like panicky. As I was watching this movie, I was like, oh shit, I wonder if this movie is what caused it, because there's so much like scuba diving and open water shark things.
Well, every time someone's in open water, a shark comes and hits them. Yeah.
And I fucking scuba diving, the thought of it makes me want to throw up. It terrifies me. I'm just like, never, ever. I will never do that. Never.
Versus I want to go swim with sharks at some point.
Right.
Yeah. There's so much in this movie. I mean, they bang at one point in a metal shop with a door open with all sorts
fire
of
and pointy objects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
just a lot going on.
It's the
Michael and his wife.
I kept getting confused between the character Michael and Michael Caine, because I just kept calling him Michael Caine, because hoagie's not an actual name. It's a sandwich.
Oh, I want a sandwich so
I know, I do too. Do I like this? Sort of. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I mean, it's sharks and Michael Caine, so that really kind of put it into like I could tolerate it category. It is way too long, though.
Was it better than Jaws 3?
Not in my mind.
Wow. That's saying something.
I thought Jaws 3 was hilarious. So there's way more deaths. There was way better.
That's true. Like
chaos.
The water skiers and the pyramid. Yeah, that's true.
There's way better underwater gate moments in this third one.
Oh my God.
It didn't have Michael Caine. If Michael Caine was in the third one, that movie is a solid film.
I think so. For me, there's the nostalgia attached to it, and so I'm trying to let that go because it's not good. It's not good.
But that doesn't mean you don't like it.
I think I like I think I like how ridiculous it is and how stupid it is and how terrible the story is. And I like remembering, because my brother and I used to watch it a lot, like late at night or like, Saturday afternoon or whatever. And my mom hated it because my mom is a big scaredy cat and hates all that stuff. And so I think that part of me is like holding on to that like enjoyment that I had as a very young person. But oh God, it's not good. Like, I feel like people should watch it because it's a part of the Jaws franchise.
So
right?
I was just thinking that in my head too. I'm like, would I recommend people go see this? Maybe.
Well, I think it's important. Listen.
Oh, I don't think it's important. Even as the Jaws franchise.
That's important is the wrong word. I was going to say, I think it's important as a whole. If you enjoy a franchise, just watch everything in it, even if it's garbage, like Jason X, which is glorious garbage, but it's
Jason X is better than so many of those films. So.
It's better than at least
like
a
Jason
couple.
Goes to Hell is a good example of like
it's a real bad
watch it because it's in the franchise, but that's on par. This is a Jason's Go to Hells of Jaws.
Yes, it is absolutely.
The setting's wrong
because it's outrageous.
There's mystical
with
stuff
like
happening.
The Satan worm and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what? I take back what I said about Jason X because I just remembered a few of the kills and they're really funny.
Really good.
They're up there with part 8.
We're actually going to do that later this year, so don't worry.
They're up there with part 8, which is one of my favorites.
I guess I would say see this film because Michael Caine is adorable. The shark is so bad, you have to see it.
It's just really shitty, but it's also like we laughed a lot.
Yeah, just know that it's slow.
Well, and go into it knowing it's not very good. The pacing is hard.
You're watching a comedy, not a horror movie.
It's not a comedy. It's a drama. They filmed it as a drama. You can tell they weren't trying to be funny. They were taking it very seriously.
Oh, but as a viewer, it's a comedy.
Oh, absolutely. So you get like a good half hour of them being really sad about Sean's death.
Of Ellen just staring out over the water at places.
Right. Ellen staring at the sea, having visions of the shark.
There is an amazing line in this movie that I remember off the top of my head, having just seen it still. They're sitting around a Christmas tree and Mario Van Peebles gives Michael this ridiculous shirt. And in front of his mother and young child goes, it's this wild like Johnny Bahama shirt. And he goes, may your love life be as wild as your shirt.
No, he said, may your sex life be as wild as your shirt.
May your sex life be as wild as your shirt. And I was like, damn, MVP, you savage.
Then later on, his wife and mother are talking. Michael's wife and mother are talking. And they're talking about, and the wife is like talking about her sex life to the mother, which, I mean, I know people do that. I wouldn't do it with your mother, and you wouldn't do it with my mother, I'm sure. Nope. But that's just the nature of our relationships. But the little girl is like standing right there too. And I'm like, this family's very open.
And so just because you mentioned, they frame that scene like they're having this conversation in her metal shop with the open door, as though she was like waiting patiently. They didn't know she was there. She's right in front of their line of vision. There's
this child is neglected. Let's be serious. She's allowed to just like flit off. She's supposed to be 5.
Babe, the 80s.
I know, but she's allowed to just go off wherever.
Yeah, the 80s.
They stick her on a banana boat with some strangers.
I mean, all these things still line up with
some kid named Margaret.
80s. Yeah.
Send her off into the ocean. What the fuck? No. Sorry.
You deserve to have her almost get eaten by a shark to try and scare you into parenting. Oh, and so after that, just to wrap up, she's in the house later. The dad comes home and the girl's like bleached white. And the mom goes, oh, yeah, she's in shock. And they just let her go home. And this child in shock? You look at me like, shouldn't she be at a hospital? Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, the doctor said she's in shock. And I'm like, aren't they supposed to be monitoring her vital signs?
That can be a very serious condition when it wears off.
So I actually have a bit of trivia about the kid, and it's really depressing. But I'm going to tell you about it because
hit me with it, because at night means I need to know it.
We're both true crime fanatics.
No,
and so I like went on a deep dive, and it's really sad. So her name, I'm going to say her name because she needs her name to be said. Yeah. So Judith Barcy, she was I don't know how old she was at this point. She was like 8 or so when she was in this part. But when she was 10, oh, this is terrible. So if you, trigger warning here, her father murdered her and her mother and then died by suicide. Yeah, because he was jealous or something. They were leaving. Like it's a really interesting and really horrible and really sad, like domestic violence abuse situation. And they were like gonna leave, but then the mom hesitated because they were immigrants from another country, and she was afraid of like losing everything that she had, and so she hesitated. And it's not her fault at all. Like, you shouldn't fucking kill people.
It's just the horrible.
And so the father took advantage of that and fucking murdered them and then killed himself. Yeah. So obviously there's something bigger going on there with him, but at the end of the day, horrible, tragic, awful, really sad. So when I was watching the movie, all I could think of was like, oh, baby.
Sweet baby angel.
So yeah, so that's a nice little like to the end of our
You've been
episode.
listening to Do I Want to Listen to This, the podcast. No,
but if you are like a true crime person who's into true crime, you can like read about it. It's really awful. Murderinos out there that we love horrible, awful, sad shit. And so I definitely fell down a rabbit hole there. But yeah, there's that on top of this whole movie.
Well, Jaws 4, Revenge.
It's Jaws the Revenge. There's no 4.
Jaws the Revenge, the 4th movie in the franchise.
Hopefully the last, please.
I mean, I feel like
they better not reboot it. It's
gotta come back at some point. But at the same time, there have been so many shark movies that have come out that it's kind of lost that luster that it had in its uniqueness. So if you're out there, don't make another Jaws.
Don't remake Jaws.
Oh, fuck you.
We will come find you.
It's one of the greatest movies of all time.
There are a whole bunch of people who will come set you on fire if you remake Jaws.
Don't remake Jaws. But do listen to us as we continue Wildlife Appreciation Month next week.
Yes. So next week we have something more along the lines of ridiculous.
Oh, yes.
Ridiculous-er.
Oh, yes.
We have another special guest, our favorite special guest. Try to guess who it might be.
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
Greatest beard ever. And then the whole month is packed with ridiculousness.
I've got some good ones I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
So do I like this podcast @gmail.com is our email, and do I like this podcast.com is our website. Please, we're going to start putting it in the details. So in the episode notes, you can find all of our social media contacts.
Mm-hmm. So follow, interact, whatever. We're very interactive on those. Typically the last week we really haven't been, but we are starting to get back into it now. Make sure that you follow, subscribe, rate, review, etc. on whatever your listening platform is.
And even if you're not on Apple, if you can go on Apple and do that, that platform really is driven by that. So we appreciate all the people who have done it so far. Mm-hmm. And we thank you for doing it in advance. So thank you so much for listening this week. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.